Hey y'all, this is David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be doing a session recap for Return of the Runefangs, Episode 7. It's been a while since I recorded the video. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks in real time. I know I've been publishing right up till today, but that's because I keep a lot of them in the can on my computer. So in real time, we're actually up to Episode 11. So I'm going to try to pound out like 3 or 4 of these in a row, get you all up to date. So what I've done since episode 6, I've created a Facebook group. It's just called Return of the Runefangs. And why this would be fun for you is because you can go there right now on Facebook and you can look up all the maps that I'm referring to, including several detailed city maps. You can look up all the NPC portraits because the vast majority of my major NPCs have portraits. So there's 4 files on there, and they each have at least 10 portraits. So I'd say we've got about 50 portraits on there, and it's continually growing, as well as the PC portraits. So what they look like. So you can follow along with your map, with your portraits. I've also got setting notes and a link to the wiki, the Warhammer wiki, which gives you even more setting detail. That's the Lexicarnum, I believe it's pronounced. I could easily be wrong there. That's just the way it's coming out of my Mameluke mouth. My Mameluke mouth full of marbles. So check out that Facebook group if you're interested, if anyone in fact is following or listening to this. And you can, of course, engage in discussions there with the members of the cast, with our players, and as new ones come in and go out, you can keep track of all of them on there as well. Plus, I've got the links up to these videos, so that can be your homepage for following the story as well. But anyways, back to episode 7. So when we last left our daring heroes, they had just besieged the Bridge Rats Thieves Guild underneath their secret manor house. They'd gone in there by storm, and unfortunately, they were walking into a trap. Cue the Admiral Akbar voice. Just do it in your head. I don't have any sound clips. I'm not that sophisticated. But they walked into a trap. The building collapsed on top of them, and a few of them made it out, and some of them had to go down into the basement. So episode 6, we had a simultaneous dungeon crawl, and then up top we had an appearance by the Tylean Mercenary Guild, as well as a new character coming in, which would be Blaine Charrington. Check out his portrait, Return of the Runefangs, on Facebook. He joined up. And then that half of the group also proceeded into the sewers. So we had 2 dungeon crawls in the same dungeon, eventually met up with each other. So of course we had a slime monster, we had some Thieves Guild traps and ambushes. And then it ended up in a bigger melee where, I believe Ulrich had captured someone. He's interrogating him, and he finally got the answers he wanted. Boom! He crushed his head with his mace, as he's wont to do. And this is one of the reasons why the Veiled Knight, Ulrich, has such a reputation for vile hideousness, the likes of which no other player character has ever committed. But from this interrogation, they learned that the guild mistress, Laurenzia Adelstein, has captured their Uncle Lewin and is taking him to the impregnable Iron Tower prison in the middle of the River Reich, and she plans on having him withdraw her beloved Sixtus Jurger from the tower as he's being held hostage by the player characters. So our heroes can't front to that, their valuable hostage being stolen away from them, so they rush out of the sewers and start to head through the city, through the, I believe it's the Volstadt district, which is the slums of the city, towards the Iron Tower. That's where we left them. As we pick up once again with them, they're rushing across the bridge. I believe that is the Nuln Bridge, but you'll have to check the map to see that on the Facebook group to see what the name of that bridge is. It escapes me at the moment. But they rush across the bridge, and of course Sauvage is limping. It's a slime monster, has burned his legs terribly. He's taken some injuries. For those of you familiar with the system, he's taken injuries. It's a statistical status effect. So he says, I can't carry on with you. I must go and seek healing at the Temple of Shalia. And he limps off, and he's leaving like they've been walking in sewers, and his legs are burned. He's got pus and shit coming out of his legs. There's third-degree burns, and he's walking in filth for some time. So, again, those of you familiar with the system know that infection is a huge risk on injuries. And, of course, that's the Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game system. I've done a review of that on my YouTube channel for those of you who care to check that out. But the remainder of the party, which would be Camilla Velis, her portraits on the group, Ulrich Berengar, Theodore Lyons. He has a couple of portraits on the group. Very nice art on his character. He's part orc-blooded. It's a tiny part. Just enough to be discriminated against by the nobles, but not enough for a peasant to notice. Peasants think he's just really ugly, which is great. Lovely character. And of course, Blaine Charrington is with them as well. The knight from Hornau in Sturland to the north. So they head into the Iron Tower, and Ulrich manages to convince the surly dwarfen guard that someone's attempting an escape. And the Iron Tower, no one has ever escaped from it, so they take this very seriously. It's a dwarf-built and dwarf-run prison, and they really care about their reputation. So this is a huge alert for them. And rather than head up to the cell where Sixtus is being held to intercept them there, they actually head back down to the docks where Laurenzia had entered the prison. The prison has its own docks, and from the bridge they could see that her ship was docked there. The Scimitar, in fact. That's the name of the ship. So they head down to the docks attached to the Iron Tower prison, heavily guarded docks with cannons and ballistas protecting it. And they arrive just in time to see Laurenzia and Luwin dragging Sixtus out. There's also a man in black, very dangerous knife fighter by the name of Sandro Mosch. Although you'll see the fate of Sandro Mosch in a moment. Laurenzia has a portrait, as does Sixtus, by the way, on the Facebook group. So the players came in, they see them being dragged out. The dwarf guards with them think it's a legal seizure, whereas the dwarf guards with Ulrich think it's an escape attempt. So a melee basically erupts, and during the course of the melee, Blaine managed to actually convince all of the dwarf guards that this is an escape attempt. So the dwarfs turn against the bridge rats, and when this happens, more thieves and buccaneers come rushing out of the ship to attack the docks. So we had a nice little battle map with the inside of the dock, with the crates piled up and barrels all over the place. Then we had the outside dock itself, and we had people getting thrown into the water, and mist blows smashing the dock and creating some somewhat difficult terrain. Very, very fun combat. Camilla, of course, has her rapier and buckler style. So she was using her buckler as her primary weapon, with the rapier being a distraction. Very fun, very excellent combat. Ulrich and Theodore hit a nice double team maneuver where Ulrich swept the guy's leg out from under him with his mace, and Theodore brought down the greatsword while he was still in midair, right on top of him, and sliced him in half. Actually, that was Sandro Mosch, who never got any speaking lines. So major NPC killed in the heat of battle. He actually did have a fate point, so I used it to not have him die. But James said, "Oh, he's just paralyzed then." And I'm like, "Well, you might as well be dead. He's paralyzed from the waist down." And in this case, I'm not sure what I could do with that character, with what he was before and then what he's become now. That pretty much removes him from the game. But it was great during the course of the combat. At some point, Sixtus had grabbed. Okay, let's come back actually. So Laurenzia saw Camilla, and this big moment. It's like, you, and all the rest of the party's like, I didn't know that you knew her, Camilla. What's going on? And Camilla's like, oh, don't worry about that. It's time for some cat fighting. And she throws down her weapons and she grabs Laurenzia by the hair. She's pulling her hair, and Laurenzia starts like scratching and pulling the hair. So this cat fight emerges in the middle of combat. And for those of you who think that this was my doing, this was not my doing. This was Megan is playing Camilla. And she initiated a cat fight of her own accord. So no one can say that I was sexistly imposing a cat fight onto my female characters, because Camilla was Megan's character and she started it, which was a little odd to me. But it's not my character, so I'm free of any guilt. I wash my hands of this cat fight. But they're struggling. They haven't fallen down yet. And Sixtus, who's got his hands bound together, loops it on the back of Camilla's neck and is holding her kind of hostage. And, they kind of line up and they start backing away. They're saying, you need to let us go, or I'm gonna snap her neck like a chicken. And, of course, because of the way the initiative system works, this is actually impossible to do. So what happened was Theodore actually just ran forward with his greatsword and just whoosh swung the greatsword down at Laurenzia, who's now free from Camilla. She raised her arm up and it sliced like through her arm on the forearm and through her shoulder, so her arm fell into two pieces on the floor. Just the blood spurted out, Kill Bill style. So she fell to the ground with blood loss, using up her fate point to not die. But she's maimed now. She only has one arm. So again, I really have to go back to the players and reiterate the rules regarding what is a wound, an injury, and a maiming. Because when you use a fate point, you're not supposed to be maimed. But for this session, we let that slide a little. We'll see what consequences that has in the long run. But so Theodore, James, had disarmed Laurenzia, quite literally. She fell to the ground, and Sixtus is shocked for a minute. And while he's shocked and stunned, Camilla, who he's holding by the neck, reached down. She pulls out her dagger and shoot right behind her into his gut. And he falls to the ground right next to Laurenzia. And it's this great scene where they're both lying on the ground, bleeding profusely, and they crawl towards each other, and they reach out and they hold hands. They're holding hands as they're laying there, and she has come to the impregnable prison to rescue him because she loves him. And he's been talking the whole time he's been in prison about how dutiful he is to her and how much he loves her, and how he just wants to get out so he can go back into her arms. Or in this case, now it's become her arm because James cut her arm off, Sir Theodore. So the great moment with the NPCs, and I could look and see. Megan kind of realized, like, oh my god, we're the bad guys. And Kevin's new to the group. This is his second session. And he's like, you guys are monsters. And Ulrich walks over and he just kicks their hands apart. He kicks their hands apart. That's a great illustration of his character and how just destroyed he is emotionally. He can't let anyone else be happy since the joy of his own life was stolen from him. So great role-playing scene amidst a great combat scene. And it was largely done on the fly because I thought they were going to go up to the tower. And I had like 5 different ways it could go. I had like a rooftop battle. I had like running down the staircase battle. I had like rappelling down the walled side wall on ropes kind of fight scene. So I had so many different ways that it could go. And down to the docks was not one of them. But it still managed to be a really, really good session, which is why I'm able to remember it, 4 weeks later, which is when I'm recording this video. Because I don't take detailed notes. I really don't, except for my XP chart. But great session, and the scimitar actually, while this was going on, there was one final part to that. While the melee was happening, Charles returned. Sauvage returned. His portrait is on the Facebook group, by the way. So he returns to the group, and he's kind of like conjuring his magical energies, being a bright mage of the Order of Flames. He's conjuring his energies up during the battle. And then when it's obvious that the Thieves Guild have lost, when Laurenzia falls and Sixtus falls, Sandro falls, so all the major thieves, all the major bridge rats in the scene go down hard. And then Charles blasts out, and rather than firing the red flames that he usually does, it blasts out black flames into the party. The fireball kind of splits, and it blasts all of them. It's like boom, 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 and then he runs through and jumps onto the scimitar, the Thieves Guild ship, as it's pushing off away from the docks. So, if you recall, back in session, I think it was 5. Back in session 5, there was a doppelganger of Sauvage. There was a look-alike of him. And this was, in fact, the doppelganger who had joined into the combat. But I got Charles to play his own doppelganger, Sauvage's doppelganger. So the party didn't see it coming. They thought that he'd gone and got healing and come back to them that quick. But actually, I had arranged with it before the game. I was like, okay, Charles, your character is going to go get healing, and you're going to come in as your own doppelganger, and that way no one will suspect, because it's played by you, no one will suspect it's a doppelganger. And Charles was like, yes, he's all over this. So that was another great little element added into the game, and it was a way to keep some heat, some characterization on the Thieves Guild, even though the other members have been shit canned basically by the party. And this was partially due to some misunderstandings about how combat works in the rule set, and also due to some degree of power gaming, which we have corrected since then. But live and learn. We don't do combat very often, so we might have been playing for 7 sessions by this point, but we've only done combat 3 times maybe. So our learning curve on the combat system is going to be pretty shallow or steep. I might be mixing my metaphors, yeah. But that was basically the lion's share of the session. Get the Iron Tower, a nice combat. Charles got a surprise. We got a good role-playing scene with the NPCs. Very, very strong session. So I'm going to leave it off there. Part 7. You can check out, again, all those portraits right on the Facebook group. That's Return of the Runefangs on Facebook. It should be easy to find. And I'll see you real shortly with Return of the Runefangs, Episode 8!